On behalf of Parks Associates and our 25th Annual Connections Conference, I'd like to welcome Raman Sidhu, Vice President of Product, Xfinity Home and Connectivity, Comcast, a huge powerhouse player. We've seen so much activity in the smart home and security space, and we really appreciate you taking your time today to share a little bit more of your perspectives. So let's go ahead and start out and see if you can share some of the latest trends you're seeing in the market today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Elizabeth. So happy to be here. And Parks Associates does such a great job bringing industry players together with great research and great events. So thank you so much for including me. When I think about some of the industry trends that are really impactful these days over the last several years, I think about DIY, right? I think about the flexibility of choice so that meeting customers where they are. DIY when it comes to professional monitoring so that there's choices there, as well as DIY when it comes to self-monitoring. Cameras, video doorbells, door locks, garage door openers, etc. There's so much goodness that is coming down the pike that customers now have the flexibility to do it on their terms. And that's not even, the first time. We often think about smart home users building their smart home kind of brick by brick over time. It's not all at once. So I think that's really important that consumers can add on to their smart home over time as their needs change. Another big one, maybe just to hit on really quickly, is convergence. Security, historically, it's been, it's a standalone service of arming and disarming. But today, particularly over the last several years, you see all of these components, these features and experiences coming together into interoperable kind of user experiences within one app or with voice assistants, et cetera. So I think those integration across use cases are going to become more and more important.
Well, I certainly agree that DIY and the new options that are coming for consumers to add security to their homes has certainly been expanding the market. And those integrations between devices and services is getting more towards the vision of the smart home that we've all been thinking about for years, which is really this whole home service play. So if you can tell me what areas are you seeing the most growth in as consumers continue to adopt more connected devices with the attached services that go along with them?
No, it's a great point, Elizabeth. I think on the core, our core is still security, monitoring, professional monitoring, self-monitoring. But as I put my kind of industry hat on and look more broadly, there's so much growth happening in those adjacencies that are leveraging the same technology, leveraging the cameras, the sensors to provide new use cases. And I think there's been market events from customers in the insurtech space with the insurance play with smart insurance. I think that's going to be really big and continue to grow and be impactful for helping consumers reduce their premiums and have safer and more secure homes. I think delivery services are, in the pandemic, I think that, for most and many consumers, the delivery of food and groceries and, whether it be DoorDash or Instacart, as well as the abundance of things that now we're just not going to the store and getting delivered to us. So how do we do that in a more safe and secure way? How do we ensure that those packages can go maybe inside the home or into the garage in a more secure way? So I think around the delivery is going to be an area that's going to continue to be important for our industry. And then another more nuanced one that I think has legs is going to be around learning and well-being. So while it's not security per se, but I think it's around using cameras and other sensors and technology so that people can learn better, whether that's cooking classes, exercise, with the Pelotonification of a lot of things that are happening. I think there are interesting new use cases and value props that are going to be developed.
Yeah, absolutely. The health to home and health and wellness play, especially as it relates to technology and smart home solutions, I think is a huge area that's going to grow. Virtual care, as well as hospitals and doctors look for new ways to serve the consumer away from some of those medical facilities. So all really good points. And certainly our data is supporting that consumers value technology more than ever. 56% reported that technology is more important and valuable to them now than prior to the pandemic. A lot of this fragmentation that we've seen in the market speaks to the age-old problem of interoperability and products by different brands and ecosystems, being able to integrate and work seamlessly together for that unified, awesome plug and play experience for the consumer. So there are still many challenges in the industry, but can you share what your view on interoperability and that role for true integration and how that's going to play out?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think historically, that is the holy grail, as you described, right? That's what everyone wants, is that devices just work. You can plug and play, and they just connect and integrate, can automate across platforms. But when you peel back that onion, Elizabeth, that's really hard, right? The technology's hard. When you have some things that are locally connected, whether it be Zigbee or Z-Wave or Thread, and you have other things that are cloud connected, there's the platforms interoperability is a challenge, and Comcast has seen that challenge, and which is why we've taken more of an approach within the Xfinity ecosystem of being more curated, picking the experiences that are really going to drive engagement, and making sure that we can put a nice wrapper around those. So it's not about having the most devices or the most smart home categories so that you can have an app where you can turn something on or off. It's about bringing in the lighting or the door locks all into one view, so that, for example, I can look out my front door and from that same view, turn the light on or off, if someone's approaching, or I can lock and unlock the door directly from that similar view. So I'm not jumping around, not even within the app, but not even, to other apps. It's all integrated onto that one screen. So as we move forward, I think as an industry, it's about picking those use cases, picking the things that are customer pain points, and making sure that we can truly kind of add value in those specific areas, rather than trying to do everything for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many different consumer segments to be taking a look at and seeing what they really value in those devices and services. One of the big areas, the big segments that we watch, are households with children. And these people with kids, they love their devices and they love their services, and they love to know what's going on in their homes and with their family members. So that is certainly a segment that we see really, really growing and continuing to value the use of technology. Also, parents at that age point where they have young children and they also might have older parents they're looking to help support. So that extension of care and monitoring, I think, is going to continue to grow in the future. Do you see that specific segment as a sweet spot for Xfinity services?
100%, Elizabeth. I think that's one of the things that, and I'm fortunate to be in a role where I look after not only Xfinity Home, but also the connectivity side. So with our X5 product, X5 Complete, we have features and experiences that are really geared towards those parental controls and knowing what devices are on your network, the digital security for those devices. The more and more, I think right now on the average, we're having, 11 or 12 smart home devices in the homes. And so when you think about the security to those, making sure that we're doing that at the gateway level. As the internet service provider, we have tools and capabilities to provide security threat monitoring on the gateway itself, so that things aren't even getting into the home or out to the wrong places. Secondly, kind of you're spot on with parental controls. We leaned into that pretty early on with our products, so that customers, particularly those with parents with kind of, let's call it, school-aged children, can monitor and help kind of open up the conversation around digital control, so that customers are monitoring what types of screen time their children may be getting, and helping to ensure that that's measured and monitored.
Awesome. Well, that's great. Raman, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your continued support and leadership, and look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I really appreciate the support from you all as well.
If you miss a live session, you can go back at any time to watch on demand. Go to Watch Replays and click on the session that you want to view. Have you created your own event agenda and swap card? Visit the Agenda and Watch Replay tabs to add sessions that interest you to your own event. You can go back to My Event to revisit any bookmarked sessions, sponsors, and items. We want to make sure that you're connecting with our industry-leading sponsors. You can interact with them by visiting the Booths and the Sponsor tab. You can also bookmark sponsors or add items to your event to view later. Sponsors have uploaded extra materials for attendees. Make sure to visit sponsors that interest you to chat with one of their team members or save documents for later. We have dedicated meeting slots set up for break times between sessions. Continue the discussion by requesting meetings from others in the SwapCard platform. Schedule a meeting with another attendee or a sponsor by visiting their page. The panelists and speakers will be addressing your questions live during the stream. During the stream, use the question tab to ask your questions early in the presentation. Go to the poll tab to answer polls that will be discussed during the live stream. If you need help navigating SwapCard, please reach out to our team by mentioning @Parks Associates in the chat box or by contacting one of our team members via our company page. Welcome to Parks Associates' 25th year of Connections, the premier Connected Home Conference. This virtual series will be hosted across 2021, bringing together a community of industry leaders in the connected home industries. In the 20-plus years that Parks Associates has hosted Connections, the connected home has evolved from a high-end concept towards a mass market opportunity with incredible revenue potential. Today, several high-profile market disruptions are emerging as a result of broadband adoption, smartphone usage, and consumer expectations for connectivity solutions that provide a personalized experience. Our 2021 sponsors are making all of this possible. Thank you to our sponsors for their support this year. Thank you for joining us at Connections today and throughout 2021. We are happy to have you here and look forward to your feedback.
Welcome back to our Connection series, where all year we're celebrating Parks Associates' 35th year in business and the 25th anniversary of Connections, the premier connected home conference. I'm Jennifer Kent, Vice President of Research at Parks Associates, and I'm excited to be continuing the second of 2 days of conversations about some of the most important topics impacting the smart home market. This first session examines the state of the smart home in Europe and the value propositions that will drive adoption in different European markets. We'll start with an overview of the topic and a little bit of an insight from Parks Associates' perspective. And then I'm very excited to welcome Juan Pablo Baz, who's the Group Chief Marketing Officer of NICE, to share some of his vision for the smart home market in Europe. Following that, our President, Elizabeth Parks, will be having an executive chat with Stephen Offering, who's the Director of Business Development with F-Secure, about modern living and the evolution of smart home in Europe. Finally, we'll break out into a full interactive panel discussion with really some of the biggest industry leaders in Europe. Speakers from the DSP Group, from ASSA ABLOY, from Miele, and from Plume will be sharing their insights and their thoughts and what they're really seeing happening in market, in the European market over the past couple of years and where the opportunities lie ahead. Finally, we always break out into a networking chat after our session is over. So at 1:15 p.m. Central Time, we will be opening up a Zoom room, and our team will include a link into the chat for you to follow us out into that virtual hallway and keep the conversation going. So certainly join us there. Before we get started, I would love to say a big thank you to our sponsors. Your support is critical to our ability to bring the industry together and to host these sessions. So thank you to Alarm.com, Calix, Cox Communities, SmartRent, Xfinity Home, Bitdefender, Johnson Controls, Notion, Tuya, Ayla Networks, Plume, and AirTies. We also want to recognize our supporters who we work with in different ways to help educate and network with the industry. We really appreciate your support of the Connections Conference Series. If you have joined us for prior Connections sessions this year, perhaps even yesterday, welcome back. If this is your first session, we welcome you to the conversation. As an attendee, you have access to all of the sessions we've conducted this year through the SwapCard platform. So you're welcome to come back, browse the prior sessions for more insights on the critical topics impacting the whole connected home space. Now, yesterday, we discussed the evolution of smart home platforms, as well as strategies for ensuring that data is protected and secure in the smart home, and strategies for manufacturers and solution providers to ensure that and message that to their end users. This afternoon, after this session, we will be taking a special look at the insurance sector as a unique channel for smart home solutions and discussing initiatives that different providers have and partnerships with insurers. We're also very excited to share with you that 2022 will include both virtual and in-person events. So our first in-person event will be Connections Summit at CES, which is a full-day event on the connected home landscape. And we've been putting on this Connections Summit at CES with CES for many years, so we hope to see you there. Then throughout 2022, we will have Connections virtual sessions, as well as our flagship in-person event will be returning in May. And we have certainly loved connecting with all of you this year virtually, and we look forward to doing so through this virtual platform throughout the year next year. But we're also eager to see those industry relationships deepen and those conversations happen with the return of our in-person events next year. So with that, let's dive into today's topic, the evolution of the smart home industry in Europe, and really finding use cases that resonate with the European consumer. Just as in the North American market, many factors certainly impact the shape and growth of the smart home market in Europe, right? First and foremost, over the past 2 years has been the impact of the pandemic, with the resulting shutdowns and shift to work at home and remote learning, a reliance on online shopping instead of retail, and a new awareness and use of technologies like video conferencing and telehealth services that folks may not have been using regularly before that. Now, with additional time at home and a need to make the home work for its residents in a new way, home improvement sales have soared. UK home improvement retailer Kingfisher, for instance, reported a 44% increase in profits in 2020 over the prior year. And they noted that was largely driven by young DIYers. Remote work has also driven home the value of rock-solid connectivity and a home network that works. A focus on better home networks, of course, also lays a new robust foundation for growth across the connected home and for everybody playing in this space. Of course, the European markets are unique, and several factors set apart most European markets from North America, such as a higher rate of consumers living in multifamily or attached housing versus standalone homes. Building materials that may make home networking a little bit more technically difficult. The professional residential security market is much smaller in Europe, which makes for a smaller overall base on which to sell smart devices as upgrades, and the need to look for different avenues and channels to reaching the connected consumer in Europe. And the whole home systems market tends to serve the luxury sector. Consumer concerns around energy consumption and the high cost of traditional security systems and services really create an opportunity in this market. And throughout this session, we will be examining value propositions that will really drive adoption in different European markets. Now, consumers in distinct European markets, of course, have varying preferences. Analysis of smart home related Google search results conducted by HomeDIT.com found that consumers in the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, France, and Spain were the most enthusiastic for smart home tech based on the volume of search activity related to the smart home. But in every country, the top smart device search for was a smart TV, which aligns with much higher interest in connected entertainment generally, versus the more utilitarian functions of core smart home products. Then smart plugs and smart thermostats crack the top 5 in most markets, really speaking to the importance of the energy conservation play as really a traditional leading driver of smart home technologies in Europe. However, these results are really interesting to me in that they also reveal some of the unique interests by country. So in the UK, smart kettles breaks the top 5. German consumers are uniquely interested in smart garden products. Consumers in the Netherlands are particularly interested in smart fitness. French consumers show an appetite for smart cooking products like smart ovens and toasters. And consumers in Spain were the only group among these 5 markets searching for smart security solutions. While security may not be the top use case in Europe, there are signs of growth and transformation. One of the leading professional security providers, Verisure, now counts 4 million subscribers, up from 3 million in 2019. So really impressive growth over the past 2 years. Some of that undoubtedly is from the company's expansion into Latin America. It serves 16 markets across the world. However, Verisure also struck a strategic partnership with Arlo, whereby Verisure acquired Arlo's European commercial operations so that Verisure can sell consumer security and surveillance services through Arlo's retail and e-commerce channels to complement their existing direct sales channel. And then, of course, it also gives Arlo a new channel to reach into the European market. At the same time, new competitors are popping up in this safety and security space. So startup Bramble has introduced a new service and marketplace called Zuluhood. Zuluhood allows consumers to connect their smart safety and security devices like a Ring or a Nest or Ecobee or Abode devices or systems to its platform using if this, and that. And then users can appoint family members, friends, even neighbors to be part of their tribe to watch over, keep an eye on their home as needed if they're away, for instance. It's also building a network of local security providers to become a marketplace for pro players to provide Zuluhood users with professional monitoring as needed. Now, energy management has been a strong use case in the European markets, and we're seeing some new deals and partnerships take place. So in May, energy company Enel X partnered with Italian broadband company Unidata and communications tech provider ZTE to launch an integrated smart home connectivity solution called GigaFiber Smart Home, which incorporates Enel X's HomeX smart home platform into the modem. So Unidata customers can receive up to a gigabit internet plus a smart home management system and bundled smart home devices to get started. And Unidata is really marketing that integrated approach as well as energy control as the top value propositions of its play here. So it notes that consumers can use a single platform, a modem, to control some heating and home heating and lighting and to monitor energy consumption in real time. In the smart lighting space, we saw IoT platform provider Tuya expand its partnerships with leading lighting brands across Europe, providing really a marketplace for local lighting brands to connect into the smart home and reach consumers. These brands include Calix, a provider of decorative lighting, and Supreme, a UK provider of batteries and lighting products, among other home products. LV Witt, a lighting provider in the UK, and Lamp Magasinet, a family-owned company specializing in lighting products in Norway. And smart lighting, of course, provides consumers a mix of ambiance, convenience, and a means to save on energy costs but they're also a really easy DIY and relatively low cost entry into the smart home for many consumers, making it really a top solution in Europe. I also wanted to highlight a deal from leaders in the high-end and custom solution spaces. So in July, custom home controls leader Crestron announced a partnership with French manufacturer Somfy, whose smart home products include motorized blinds and shades for both internal and external use in the home, as well as motorized pergolas. And the partnership really is meant to make it easy for custom integrators to incorporate Somfy products into the Crestron home platform. And home integrators who often focus on, AV and home theater and home networking infrastructure really now have more tools in their toolkit to offer European consumers the ability to increase comfort and, again, save on energy costs using smart shading and blinds. But also, I think it's interesting that the effect of the pandemic enforcing people to be at home for longer periods of time has also spurred interest in making better use of outdoor space. And Somfy's marketing its motorized pergolas alongside this trend as a way to redesign private gardens and outdoor space for usability and comfort. Of course, there are many innovative companies developing a whole host of use cases and value propositions in the European market. EVs are of particular interest for the smart home sector, as a massive increase in electric powered vehicles also points to a massive increase in electricity consumption at home, which makes intelligent home energy optimization even more important. Notably, new legislation proposed in the UK will require all new homes to have smart charging devices in England. Products enhancing indoor air quality are of new concern to customers and consumers and property managers, given the respiratory nature of the COVID-19 virus. And again, the new focus on connected health products and services, and a particular concern for the elderly population who have become, who have been at particularly high risk of poor outcomes with COVID-19 has risen to the top as well. We saw the European Commission conduct a study to understand how its various member countries had used telehealth and remote patient monitoring, connected health technologies to connect with seniors and with caregivers and to try and address social isolation during the pandemic and understand the barriers that exist from making better use of technology in the future. And finally, I want to come back to one of the points I started on with the need for a fantastic home networking experience to make all of this innovation work. The need for intelligent Wi-Fi products and managed broadband services is a huge opportunity for broadband providers and their vendors. So I'm looking forward to hearing about all of the innovation and movement happening in the smart home market from our industry speakers today. And also want to encourage you to share your thoughts. We have polling questions up in the polling question tab to get your thoughts. And you're welcome to ask questions to our speakers as we go. So with that, I'm so excited to introduce our Visionary Insights speaker today. Juan Pablo Baz is the Group Chief Marketing Officer with NICE. Juan has more than 20 years of international experience working with solutions for smart homes and businesses. For the past 7 years, he served as the Sales Director for Europe and the Middle East at Control4, and is now leading a team charged with empowering growth at NICE. So I'm very pleased to welcome you, Juan. How are you today?
Thank you, Jennifer. Very excited to be here. Very happy to be here with you today. Let me just get my presentation started. There we go.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us, and please go ahead and jump in.
Thank you. So the plan for today, we prepare a few slides to share some insights of how do we see the smart home market in Europe, in the specifics of Europe, and give you some perspective of how do we see it evolving in the years to come. Whenever I have to spend a few words about our company, I like to jump back to the mission. It is a simple but very powerful statement, right? It talks to improving our customers' quality of life. It talks to a customer that it's at the core of everything we do at NICE every day. And I think it's a fantastic summary of our relationship with customers. It's something you can find reflected in everything we do, in every product, solution, or service we put on the market. So I think it gives a very good idea of who we are and how do we approach the market. With this mission, NICE started as a dream in a garage in 1993 by our founder, Mr. Woro. And a long time, we have growth both organically and through acquisition, entering new territories, new countries, new regions, but as well new segments, alarms and sun shadings, for example. I would like to remark here that in 2018 we have started to get involved with the smart home with the acquisition of both Vivaro and Avodi, and we have strengthened this portfolio, this position just recently with the integration of Nortec Control. This is really exciting because it's also giving us getting us exposed to new technologies or new solutions based on AI, and as you were saying, virtual care or personal health, which is again very exciting for all of us. We started in 1993. Today we are a company operating globally with direct offices, direct teams in more than 24 countries in all continents. So we are very proud of where we got and looking forward to keep this growth path for the future. Getting into the specifics of the smart home in Europe, you could say that the market is done of companies dedicated to the segment and companies that are converging into the smart home. And we like to classify them in 6 different categories, 6 different segments, from control and connectivity to smart appliances. This is just to give a better understanding of how is the market segmented and where do we see, again, the business going in the future. So for this study, for this presentation, for the scope of this presentation, we have not included smart TVs. So we're going to talk about smart home devices with the exclusion of smart TVs. So it's very exciting times for our industry. We're expecting to see the overall business in Europe closing at $26 billion by the end of this year. It's a market in strong growth, and we are expecting to see this trend continuing at least until 2025. There is some conservative and so the growth rate should stay in between 17-19% CAGR for as said until 2025 at least. If we look at the categories or the segments, we would like to remark 2 that we are seeing growing above the average. And that's energy management. We are seeing energy management. So we are seeing the reason why, at least from our perspective, is customers getting more sensitive to sustainability. Is not anymore a topic that is exclusive to millennials, but it's basically getting adoption also. On a wider, on a broader audience. There is also, the factor of the ever increasing cost of energy, at least in Europe, that is driving adoption. And we have seen over time, and it's still happening, some governments, some European governments adding incentive or offering incentives for to improve energy efficiency at the home, and that's also driving growth, particularly for heating solutions or connected smart heaters. So we are seeing these factors driving that category. The second one that is above the average is control and connectivity, and I think it's very clear that talks to customers looking into systems. They are not looking into standalone products, but they want great products that can get part of a system. And connectivity, of course, we live, our life have changed, at least at home, before and after the COVID pandemic. So today we work, we live, and we get educated. We entertain ourselves at home. So I think that's a good reason why we are needing better networks at home, and we're seeing this category overperforming the average. Okay. The overall penetration, or the average penetration is at 14%, but we'll look into some details on that in the next slides. And the good news for all of us is that we are expecting that adoption rate to double in between 2025 and 2026. So we're not that far away from that. So really an exciting time to be in this industry. Looking at the revenue, the UK and Germany are ahead of the curve, right? With the UK leading the way. We are seeing Southern Europe, let's say the Mediterranean and Eastern Europe countries, just following. But if you look at the market, the UK and Germany together will make about 50% of the total market value. If you put together all the revenue in Europe, we are accounting for about 80% of what the value is for the US market. So Europe altogether is a little bit smaller than the US, and if you look into Europe, the UK and Germany count for about 50% of the total business, with the other countries following. Okay. If we look into growth, the situation is different. So the great news is that you can see good growth all across the region, all across the territory, with again the Mediterranean countries or Southern Eastern Europe showing higher rates for the year to come. This is because, of course, we are starting from lower numbers. So when you start from a lower revenue, it's easier to, of course, it is expected to show higher growth rates. Germany, we are going to see Germany cutting the gap slowly to the UK, but by all means, the UK and Germany will remain the biggest markets in terms of revenue. So these are today, and they are expected to remain the biggest markets for the smart home in Europe. In terms of the adoption curve, we are seeing the whole region moving from an early adoption phase towards acceptance and demand, which is again really good news for all of us. We are not yet at the level of the US, but the numbers are improving year over year. These figures here are from 2020. I think our expectation for 2021 is to add a couple of digits on every single market. So everything indicates that we're going towards the right direction, and that we're going to see an acceleration over the coming years. Another information that could be interesting is that 60, almost 70% of adopters, meaning customers having at least one smart home device at home, are considering adding more devices in the near future. So I think we are, as an industry, we are managing to deliver or to start deliver great solutions to our customers, and that's again very, very, very good news. So going into how do we see the future? How do we see which are the enablers for growth? Which are the drivers that will be key for or strategic to sustain this growth? We think so. We could talk for a couple of hours about this, and I've seen some great presentations over the past few days. We kept it limited and very high level into 3 points that we think are strategic. So the first one will be improved networks. For us, this talks to the adoption of not only the adoption of broadband internet, especially in the Southern European and Eastern European countries, but also the rise of new technologies like 5G or Wi-Fi 6 that will help us having better connectivity for all devices at home and outside. And we think this will be a very important driver. The second one we wanted to share today is, of course, interoperability. Customers like choice. They want choice. They don't want to be closed into one system, into one brand. They expect today to have products that are designed to work a part of a system. We are all seeing some very exciting developments around this topic, and we are looking forward to get it, to see them coming through. So to give our customers once again better solutions. Finally, our third and probably most important driver for the future is based on personalization and AI. We think the future will be less about developments on hardware. I think we have reached a very good level there. We believe that the future is about the smart home getting smarter. Us as an industry being able to provide solutions for customers that could be where they can have a much higher personalization, and where through machine learning and AI they can basically enjoy their living and their working spaces at full. This is really a big topic for us, and it's a big topic for us as an industry, for us at NICE, and I believe it will be a fantastic enabler for the future. We would like to share a video that we have before going into the Q&A that gives a quick idea of how do we see this happening. It's about our system, our ecosystem. The first one at NICE, getting all these devices together and using some of these topics. So we would like to share it, and then we can move into the Q&A.
My home is my world. And with UB Home, I can be sustainable and manage my energy consumption. I can keep everything under control easily, with a click, with gestures, with my smartphone, or with voice commands. I can easily connect to the existing network of devices and automations installed in the house. I can control the temperature and lights in my home intelligently, using presence sensors. I can manage the consumption of my household appliances efficiently, avoiding waste. and invent scenarios that create good habits. I can program scenarios to automate awnings, blinds, and shutters, to manage the temperature of the house with the help of the sun. And most importantly, I can have more time for myself. Your life gets better.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and really giving us some nice vision into the growth that you've seen, especially across different sectors and different markets. Really, really valuable. We did get some questions from the audience that I wanted to share with you to get your thoughts. So one question is specific to the German market. If you have any insight into what technology is the leader in the German market for home access and control? What are you seeing in the German market?
That's a very interesting question. That's a very interesting question. I think we are looking into. I don't want to mention any specific brands. I know that, but I think it's interesting for us in Germany to see how the trend goes more into connected door locks, for example. So we are looking very closely into how that develops. I think, as I said, I don't want to mention any specific brands because I'm sure I cannot mention them all, and I don't want to get anyone angry. But I think that's a nice specific of the German market, and it's interesting because you don't get that much, at least from our side, from our perspective. We don't see that much requirement from other countries in Europe about this topic, but yeah, I would say connected door locks it's a very trending topic for Germany.
Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. I actually was going to follow up with something that struck a chord with me. You mentioned, of course, that UK and Germany are really the top markets when it comes to revenue opportunity today, but a lot of strong growth in the Mediterranean markets. And so if smart locks are, kind of trending in Germany, can you give us any sense of what's really, piqued consumers' interest in Spain and Italy and I saw Turkey actually, some really strong growth there. Is there anything that's really standing out for those consumers that comes to mind?
Well, we are seeing a lot of interest in smart home security, for example, connected smart home security solutions, DIY, but also sometimes professionally installed. We are looking. So we are seeing a lot of interest, as said before, into energy efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
Energy management, particularly on connected thermostats, for example. That's a trending topic in these countries. I would say, particularly in Italy, where we have some. In the country, we have some incentives to get the homes more efficient in terms of any energy consumption. And it's not that much about lights; it's about the heater and getting an efficient heating system. So I think these are basically the common trends that we can share in terms of the big topics, the big categories for these countries. Yeah.
Great. We have another question related to health and wellness at home. Do you see new concerns or demand for connected health and wellness products being a growth opportunity in the smart home?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a new topic for us. We have integrated, so we have acquired Nortec Controls earlier this year. They had some experience already in AI and virtual care or personal health. I see it being one of the mega trends going forward into the future. Remember that we have an aging population in Europe. Today is about 100 million people today. being over 65 years old in the continent. That number will grow. Life is getting life is getting longer, luckily. So we see that as a very, very important category moving into the future. Yes.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Nortech, of course, is very well known for its panel and security solutions, but also, had some brands related to the personal emergency response service, the PERS market, right, providing panic buttons and services specifically, for that elderly use case. And so, are you looking to kind of grow or innovate or build off of that Nortech, assets? That congratulations on the big acquisition there.
Well, thank you very much. I cannot reveal all our secrets in this call, but yes, I will say that we are looking into AI, and we are looking with a lot of attention into some of these categories that are part of the mega trends that will drive business in the future, right? We have a generation of millennials growing up, people that has born in the age of smart homes, and we have a population aging. We have governments promoting energy efficiency. Our life is getting more connected at home and outside the home. So I think the good news for all of us is that what we do today is very important. We're in the right industry, and it will become always more relevant as we move into the future, which is very good news.
We have another question related to difficulties. If you could share any of your perspective on the difficulties surrounding, home building materials, the density of populations in certain areas, or reaching rural consumers and making sure that they have the connectivity they need to even be a potential security or smart home type customer. Can you share any thoughts that you have on what it takes to really bring smart home products that work for the way that buildings are built and people live in Europe?
Yeah, well, that's again a very good question, and how much time do we have to answer to that?
About 3 more minutes.
No, I would say that we have some challenges in Europe. Differently from the US, we have to manage with a lot of languages. We have to manage with a lot of different standards in terms of building. I'm thinking, for example, to the lighting building, the lighting business, where you have different back boxes in different countries. Our walls, differently from the US, are made of are solid walls. so yeah, there are many challenges, especially in the big cities where turning on a Wi-Fi network and making it work properly is definitely tough. So as I said before, we are looking into the development of and the availability of new technology, as I said, 5G and Wi-Fi, to be a driver to overcome some of these challenges. And they won't have an effect on standards, construction standards, but I trust they will definitely help customers improving their connectivity possibilities at home and abroad.
Now, does that open up some opportunities for professional services, whether that's professional installation and configuration or professional support, to help configure devices and home networks in a way that really works for each individual home?
Absolutely. I think what happened is we did a very good learning during the lockdown in Europe, where before the Wi-Fi at home was just something I have, and it's enough for what I have to do, right? Today we are requiring a good home network. So we have seen a lot of movement in that sense. We have seen a lot of customers, and I'm not talking numbers now, but we have seen a good amount of customers improving their home networks through professionals, right? They realize it was not in what they have was not enough to work, to get educated, and to get entertained at home, to get the whole family to do it at the same time. So we've seen a race of companies getting specialized in supplying properly done home networks, let's say.
Wonderful. Well, Juan, thank you so much. That is all the time we have for today, but thank you for sharing your vision with us and telling us what's going on at NICE. So we appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. A pleasure.
Wonderful. And just give us just a minute and we'll be back with our executive Q&A chat, spotlighting the modern evolution of smart home in Europe. So we'll be right back. Thank you.
New research from Parks Associates shows for the first time online retailers dominate as the top channel for the most widely adopted smart home devices. Overall, more than 1/3 of U.S. broadband households own at least one smart home device. Our new research, Smart Home Consumer Purchases and Preferences, includes an analysis of COVID-19's impact on the smart home markets and provides insight into identifiable purchasing behaviors, including product and feature preferences among consumers. According to this quarterly survey work of 10,000 broadband households, the pandemic was finally the tipping point for online retailers, which had been trending towards the top channel position for years. Security dealers are an important secondary channel for smart safety and security devices, while HVAC contractors are an important channel for smart thermostats. Repeat buyers are still the top smart home customers, but at some point, this group will reach saturation. The mainstream volume portion of the market is still playing wait and see because they haven't been sufficiently convinced of the smart home value proposition. For more information on this new research, please contact our team today.
Welcome back. What a great presentation there from the NICE group. We really appreciate that perspective. And now my name's Elizabeth Parks. I'm the president of Parks Associates, and I want to thank you again for joining us. And I am pleased now to introduce our next speaker, Stephen Offren from F-Secure, who is going to share some specific market views at the regional differences that we're seeing across Europe with some of the research that they've conducted as it relates to the connected home space. So thank you, Stephen, for joining us. Let's go ahead and jump right in and see if you can give us an introduction of F-Secure and what your role is there.
Absolutely. And thanks again for having me, Elizabeth. Really happy to be here. So yeah, at F-Secure, for those of you who don't know us, we provide cybersecurity solutions for enterprises and consumers alike. And we've been doing this for more than 30 years. So we've been around the block for a while. We know what we're doing in artificial intelligence for more than 10 years now. One of the interesting bits, I think, about F-Secure is that we focus on delivering a holistic consumer cybersecurity as a business model for over 200 service providers worldwide. And together with these service providers, we have delivered over 500 product launches across the globe, which is something that we're particularly proud of. So it's a very important channel for us. And specifically related to what we'll be talking about today, since almost 5 years, we have been expanding our offering to also cover the connected home. So moving away a bit from our bread and butter products, which are obviously the antivirus cybersecurity products running on the actual devices, we've moved into the connected home space to protect all devices in the connected home. My role in that is I'm the director of business development, work with service providers, router manufacturers, and industry groups around the globe to tackle the connected home security piece.
Well, that's great. Thanks for sharing all that. And certainly, service providers play a key role in the context of consumers at home. And certainly, with the transformation that we've seen with the impact of COVID, I think service providers are going to continue to be a leading channel for smart home devices. And certainly, there are privacy and security issues there that need to be addressed. I know F-Secure spends a lot of time looking at the specific regions in Europe and understanding how consumers relate to privacy and security, their interest in value-added services, and their general perceptions around data exchange. So let's see if we can dive right in
Sure.
and talk about some of the specific growth in certain regions based off some of the research work you've done.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think some of the interesting bits we've seen on the back of our research over the past couple of years, and especially as the pandemic obviously unfolded across the globe, a few open doors probably. We've all seen the developments that we spend more time than ever online, and the pandemic has forced all of us to learn new digital skills. From old to young, everyone has really had to jump on this bandwagon, and it's massively accelerated the adoption of technology throughout society. One of the areas, for example, that we've seen in Europe has taken a massive jump, certainly in areas where it wasn't as much developed yet, is, for example, the online shopping and banking, which is now 30 percentage points higher than before the pandemic. And of course, we've also seen a massive jump in the whole working from home situation at the same time. But thankfully, amidst all that, we also found time to enjoy ourselves a bit, and we see that things like online gaming have also massively grown by well over 20%. And linked to that, we've also seen that many people are buying all these connected home devices, these smart home devices, IoT devices. And if they haven't already bought them, we see in Europe particularly that 42% of European consumers are planning to buy new connected home devices within the next 12 months. So it's a massive market. And we've seen just in Juan's presentation as well that there are big differences between the countries in Europe, with the UK and Germany leading, which is also something that we see in our research. But between the countries in Europe, there's also interesting differences. So we do see that in big markets in Europe, Germany as an example, consumer security and privacy worries are very much alive, and about half, 50% of customers are postponing smart home device purchases on the back of these security and privacy worries, for example. And what we see across the entire region, but actually globally as well, is that, interestingly, consumers purchasing these devices do not trust necessarily the device manufacturers. 80% of device manufacturers, of customers actually don't trust the device manufacturers to keep them safe online. But they're actually looking at their internet service provider to do that for them. So that is, I think, where there's a clear opportunity for service providers.
Yep, and I love that you brought the word trust in. You know, that is a theme throughout all of the sessions yesterday and previously. And certainly in our research in the US, we see that the home security providers at top of the list, followed by the ISPs in terms of being able to deliver that trustworthy experience with the data exchange. Is there anything that you might be able to note on some of the southern countries versus the more northern, and if there are different cultural aspects that come into play in regards to specific use cases? So door locks and doorbells, you know, are these more attractive to the northern countries versus the southern? And are there any specific reasons around that you all might have found?
That's an interesting question, and yeah, I'm sure we can dive into that a bit deeper. For the well, door locks in particular, I think Juan just had a very interesting point about that being a big thing in Germany. We see, for example, also marked differences, for example, for connected speakers. So we see, and I'm just looking at my Alexa that is standing right here. We see a big difference between countries' take-up rate of that. And those things we see on the back of our research strongly linked to privacy concerns. So really, again, it comes down to, okay, do I actually trust this device sitting in my home with microphones that are effectively active 24/7? And I think in general, to come back to your question around the Southern European countries versus Northern European countries, I do think in general there's lower take-up of IoT devices so far in Southern European countries. I can, yeah, probably guess a few things about what could be at the basis of that. But yeah, I think that's an interesting one. However, I think that the opportunity and the growth in the Southern European countries is definitely picking up. Also, might have to do with language support, right? For example, for these smart home speakers, it's not a miracle that the UK has a much higher adoption rate of those, because usually they come out from companies like Google, Amazon, support the English language first, and then find their way into other countries. So that might be another factor that plays a role in that.
Sure, absolutely. And well, as you noted earlier, the remote workforce has really changed consumers' general habits at home. Same with schooling for children. And so that creates this new thinking for consumers where, they may have never thought about technology before as a way to really provide value. So if you've got kids at home, you're working at home, and you're looking to try to manage your broadband network, this managed service play is highly important, and the value-added services that stem from it that also allow for protection of devices is so critical. Let's move a little bit into that discussion on the home network and the congestion that we're seeing in the U.S., also happening over in Europe. How do you feel like ISPs are responding to that congestion? Are they enabling new ways for consumers to ensure reliability and connectivity in their homes?
Absolutely. I think that is at the forefront of every ISP in Europe at the moment, as it will be worldwide. I think traditionally in Europe we've seen, and again that's also a trend we've seen worldwide, is especially the incumbents trying to make most of their existing copper networks, for example, by introducing new technologies like DSL and really trying to lengthen the lifespan of that copper line into the home. But now we're seeing a massive step change into the transformation into fiber to the home. And what that obviously brings is great opportunity in terms of performance. But hand in hand with performance, I think we also see an additional focus on security of the home network. Because with these higher performing home connections, there will be more devices connected to the internet 24/7, and that requires additional security as well. And what we really strongly get back from customer research is that customers really don't want to be forced to make a decision between performance and security. They want a fast connection, which is secure at the same time. Which is why we've actually worked with many service providers, but also with router vendors across the globe to develop what we call our hyperspeed technology, which makes sure that even when you enable security on the household level on the router, this has a negligible impact on the broadband performance, and that is being really appreciated by the end users. Because if they pay for that 1 gigabit, if they pay for that symmetrical connection on fiber to the home, they want to get that performance out of it as well. So yeah, super relevant.
That's great. And I want to get back to those add-on services, but I do have a question from the audience and a reminder to our listeners, if you have any questions, please go ahead and send them in and we will work them in the conversation. So this is an interesting one because it varies a little in my thinking, but my past experience is that Western Europe has for decades been significantly ahead of North America in the adaptation of technology in everyday life. Has the gap narrowed in recent years, in your opinion? And I'll just say from the Parks view, we've seen Europe ahead in a lot of different ways with energy management and controls in some ways as well, tied to energy, but then in other instances, lagging behind the U.S. market. So would love to hear your perspective on where Western Europe is versus North America, and then has that gap changed in the past couple of years, directly related to some of the pandemic impacts?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I would agree with you, Elizabeth, as well. I think it depends on the area that you're looking at. So, for example, the heating and cooling, or the HVAC industry that was spoken about previously as well. I think that one has been quite ahead in Europe. In terms of technology. But then again, if we speak about the new things like smart speakers, etc., that's where we see the North American market leading over Europe. And as I said, it can have different reasons. One of them being language support. It is quite tricky for a company, or especially a startup, for example, in this field, to support Europe in all its different languages alone, for example. So it's not a super easy market in that sense to break into for new companies getting started in the smart home field, for example. Having said that, I think there's other markets that actually, or other areas, other segments that Europe and America are broadly similar in terms of adoption rates. Like things like smart TVs are prevalent everywhere. We see them all over the place now.
Absolutely. And I think it's notable that the home security market in the U.S., has reached 36% of broadband households. And there's really a very different picture if you look at the countries in Europe. And that's an important channel because those smart home devices can get attached to the security systems. And then those added services also can stem from there. So I think Europe's a little, just doesn't have that base foundation on the security system side. But let's turn back to the home network and connectivity, and let's talk a little bit about specific features that we're seeing that come up in Europe versus maybe the North American market. So as far as whole home, the whole home perspective of the end user and understanding the devices that are connected, the ability to control them, on and off, the parental controls, the add-on cybersecurity offerings that are coming from ISPs. Where do you see the biggest growth, and what features are you seeing consumers uptake the most, and really getting to the point of, we've got added opportunity for monthly revenue, and where are we going to see this show up first in the European markets?
Brilliant. That's a really, really good question. I'll try to answer that from a few different angles. First one is the features that you spoke about. One of the things that we really see at the forefront of people's concerns in Europe, but also worldwide, is obviously as people use online services more and more for shopping and banking, is to keep their money safe online. Money is still really the big thing that we want to keep safe and out of other people's hands. So that's something that we see around the 60% mark in Europe. Tiny bit lower in our countries, but roughly around that 60% mark. One area that we see as a massive growth area is that connected home security piece. So on the back of all those devices that we drag into our homes and then realize, oh, maybe it's not as secure or as privacy oriented as I had hoped. the opportunity here lies with the service provider to offer a solution that covers the entire home in a warm blanket that secures the customer's online security and privacy. And there we see globally roughly a third of customers being already very interested in that. That's one of the ones that is growing rapidly year over year. Another one which is fairly stable, another feature, is the family protection component. So that's where we see a 30% of customers, obviously the people who have younger kids living at home, they are interested in a family protection feature. And very importantly, they want a family protection feature that works not just at home, but also when the kids take the iPad and the smartphone outside of home. So one solution that covers that entire use case and gives parents peace of mind wherever kids go. So the same limitations in terms of content and time management apply on the kids' Xbox at home, as well as the iPad when they go out and go to a friend's place, for example. So that's a very big one.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a mom of 3 children who have devices seemingly attached to them at all times, we've just got managed services in our home, and it's amazing, actually, the power of the off on the Wi-Fi or the specific device. Also provides a lot of peace of mind. You know, the content on the internet is absurd in some ways, and you just don't want your kids seeing some of this stuff. So really important.
And that's the thing. And we see a lot of interest from parents who, I mean, if kids really want to see something, that there's probably a way they can get to it, right? But it's about the kids just browsing the internet and stumbling across things that we really don't want them to get in touch with. So yeah, and that's definitely where the solution can play a super big role.
Yeah, and certainly the education, even for the young children. We heard a speaker on a session yesterday talk about how his kids were in school, you know, being taught safety and security online. And it is a really important thing. And I think parents understand the value, and there certainly is a willingness to pay to ensure additional protection for your children. That leads a little bit into the technology side of things. So, you know, technology moves way faster than it can be delivered to the end user. And so there is a lot of catch up, I think, for the industry in really explaining the value that comes from smart home solutions. Clearly, we see in our research in the US that many consumers still just don't get it. They don't understand the value proposition. They're not familiar with some of these products, despite what many of us in the industry are quite familiar. You know, really only 1 in 10 households in the US has a smart doorbell or a smart thermostat. So it's still a low adoption over here as well. But how do you think these future technologies like AI and machine learning that really create predictive and proactive types of events to be able to occur, how is this going to impact the landscape here in the near future for consumers?
That's a good question. And AI and machine learning, and as I said at the intro, has been at the heart of a lot of the things that we do at F-Secure to keep our customers safe, as we need these technologies to analyze threats that come out on a daily, hourly basis and are potentially impacting our customers. I think what is important when it comes to these things, like you said, is we need to make sure that end users, consumers, but also our service provider partners, that they can trust how we use AI and machine learning. And we need to be very clear on the benefits to the end user. We can, for example, use AI to detect threats, and consumers benefit directly from that. And we shouldn't try and hide it as something that is potentially scary or something like that. But I think I want to add to that with AI, there's usually a big privacy concern. But I think it's very important to state that obviously you can use AI and machine learning in privacy-aware ways. So you can employ it without impacting the user's privacy per se. And that is something that we are very, very aware of. Privacy is at the very heart of everything we do. Yeah, you might have heard in Europe we have the GDPR legislation, and I think in Finland, where our headquarters are, we go even one step beyond GDPR to protect our users' privacy. So that's a very big thing. And yeah, I also want to communicate, obviously, that service providers doing business with us really appreciate that their customers' data is well protected in our security cloud, for example. Having
Yeah.
said that, I think one of the things that customers really appreciate is the additional visibility they get when looking at the connected home security piece. So suddenly they can see which devices are all connected to their network. And we've done a bit of research on that as well. And if you ask customers beforehand, hey, how many connected devices do you have? Well, maybe 7, maybe 8. And then they see the list and oh, there's 21 in the home. And that's when, yeah, suddenly that light goes off and like, yeah, I need to make sure that everything is protected.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the news that shows up helps bring awareness to consumers in their home about these, opportunities with connected devices where there's gaps there. I do have a question from the audience, so let me ask this to you. We're seeing a lot of ISPs and IoT players paying more attention to SMBs or small to medium businesses as a potential segment for growth. Can you share a little about the SMB market and any considerations given this newly distributed workforce that we see?
Oh, that is a beautiful question. I think, and especially on the back of all the changes that we've seen throughout the pandemic, markets like the consumer market, SOHO, SMB, are getting closer and closer together in terms of requirements, but also in terms of spend and the type of devices that they purchase. So what we see is actually that there can be very similar requirements from a family as well as from a small office, home office scenario. Obviously, the way as a service provider to tailor this is slightly different. So, for example, you wouldn't offer your small enterprise customer something that is called parental controls, but actually the features that underpin parental controls like content management, like access control to the Wi-Fi network are actually features that you do want to have. So it's about kind of reusing, repackaging these in a way that is interesting for the SOHO and small and medium business market. I think one interesting point I want to point out is the value for money, which I think is a really big reason why a lot of SOHO actually use consumer products, because they're pretty good and they get an awful lot of value for money with it without having to pay that enterprise premium. So that is where we're working with service providers to kind of bridge that gap and offer products that are not quite at the enterprise premium, but for a little bit extra, you can just get that tailored SOHO experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of blurred lines that we're seeing between business and consumers, remote work at home, or work at the office rather, and the role of the service provider and that office, the employer, in how they're handling their remote workforce. So it's really interesting times and lots of opportunities, to provide value to the consumer. This is ultimately all about the experience, and that experience has to include confidence for the consumer that their devices are protected. So really, really interesting comments. We just have a couple minutes. It's amazing how quickly 30 minutes can go by here. But I want to allow you to close here and tell us what you see as the biggest opportunity in the connected home landscape in Europe. And that will end our time for today. So we look forward to hearing this last question.
That's That's a big question for for just 2 minutes, I guess. I think the biggest opportunity that we have together with our with service providers in Europe is to make sure that customers and all their devices are protected from cyber threats. Give customers the peace of mind that they're looking for, making them feel protected wherever they go, in and out of the home. And do that in a way that is simple to use for the end user. Don't give them 3 different apps. Don't give them 2 different ways to manage their settings for at home and out of the home. But giving them that simplicity where in one simple to use interface they can make their changes. And that is a suite of products and capabilities that we have available to service providers to implement in a fairly light touch or even zero touch way if needed. And that really gives the service providers not only the chance, obviously, to provide that peace of mind to the end user, but also to monetize this capability. As we do see that, interestingly, consumers are actually more willing to spend for holistic whole home security than they are for holistic whole home Wi-Fi coverage, for example, because they expect that, especially in Europe, they expect that to be part and parcel of the broadband subscription, but they're happy to pay for security.
Well, that's great. You know, it really is a service-driven market, and we've heard it before, and we're hearing it again from you, that we need to provide consumers with a unified, simple experience that has value. And certainly appreciate your comments today and F-Secure's role in helping, build and truly grow the industry. So, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time and hope you have a great day.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me, Elizabeth.
Great. So that was awesome. I love those comments. And we will be right back for a powerhouse session talking more about smart home in Europe. Thanks for joining us.
On behalf of Parks Associates, it's our goal to ensure our event sponsors receive great visibility and benefits from supporting our executive conferences, custom webinars, white papers, and podcasts. By participating in our events and custom marketing activities, companies gain visibility and brand awareness by leveraging our industry knowledge and insights, which have been carefully and strategically curated for over 35 years. Our event sponsorships include customized visibility options to fit your needs and reach our executive level audience focused on the specific areas we study. Parks Associates custom marketing services include a white paper, webinar, or podcast, which can be produced as a separate marketing activity or in conjunction with our event sponsorships. These thoughtfully crafted content projects leverage our consumer and industry data and are highlighted by our marketing and research team for 3 months. Our team promotes these custom projects through a variety of channels and formats, including video, social media, podcasting, blogging, press activities, and more. Throughout the year, we help connect you with the people who matter the most. In 2022, we look forward to offering virtual events in addition to in-person events, providing a great mix of options to participate. Connections is our flagship event held annually for over 25 years. This conference addresses critical business issues pertaining to the converging connected home ecosystem and crossover opportunities in adjacent markets. Join us virtually all year and in person in May of 2022. Smart Energy Summit, Engaging the Consumer, examines the expanding markets for energy solutions and home controls, as well as their impact on utilities, service providers, retailers, manufacturers, and consumers. We look forward to seeing you virtually year-round as well as in person in February of 2022. Connected Health Summit, Consumer Engagement and Innovation features shifts in consumer healthcare with a special focus on the impact of connected devices, mobile health services, and new health reforms. This conference will be held all year virtually and meeting in person in August 2022. Future of Video, OTT, Pay TV, and Digital Media focuses on the changing digital media landscape with sessions examining OTT and streaming video, content delivery and discovery, and strategies for attracting and retaining consumers. We'll see you virtually throughout the year and in person in December 2022. If you're interested in getting involved, please reach out to me today. I would love to talk with you.
Wonderful. So we are back and ready to dive into our full interactive panel discussion about EU partnerships, strategies, and services to move the market forward. Please allow me to welcome our wonderful panel of experts today. I'm going to ask each of them to come in and tell us a little bit about themselves and about the organizations that they represent before we get started. So I'm going to start with Tally Chen. Tally is the Chief Business Officer for DSP Group. Hi, Tally.
Hi, everyone. Very excited to be here, although not as excited as being in Amsterdam. So I'm the Chief Business Officer of DSP Group, working for the company for the last 14 years. DSP Group was founded in 86, traded in the Nasdaq from 94, and the company is actually serving a few segments, as you can see here in this slide. The first one, which is the more of the mature market legacy product line that we have, is the cordless phones. DSP Group is #1 worldwide leader providing solutions for cordless phones. And the other three represent the growth areas for the company. The first one is the unified communication. In the unified communications market, we are supplying SoCs, enabling voice and audio communication in IP desktop phones, conferencing systems, etc. Smart Voice is a line of DSPs enabling voice as a user interface and Edge AI in a wide variety of consumer devices, from hearables to security cameras, IoT devices, tablets, and many more. And the third one is actually connectivity for smart home called ULE. ULE is based on the DECT technology, and as such inherits its benefits of natural support in two-way voice, interference-free spectrum band. Here we are working mainly with telecommunication service providers in Europe, such as Deutsche Telekom, Orange, Swisscom, and many more, and security service providers in the States.
Great, thank you, Tally. Excited to have your perspective on this panel today. And also you mentioned Amsterdam, for the audience, Parks Associates put on Connections Europe in Amsterdam for 15 years. And we aren't able to be there in person this year, but so pleased to have you, Tally, and all the other speakers today to really bring that European perspective to continue to be part of the conversation at Connections. So thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so next up we have Marcus Henkelman, who is the Director for Smart Residential Products at Yale with the ASSA ABLOY Group. Hi, Mark. How are you?
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are in the world. For me, it's already evening, so I'm sitting in Germany. Like said, my name is Marcus Henkelman. I'm the Director for Smart Residential Products for Yale EMEA, which is an ASSA ABLOY Group. Yale as a brand is 181 years old or strong, and Yale is the leading security brand that protects people, places, and things we love. We are securing millions of homes and businesses worldwide with our innovative mechanical locks, safes, smart locks for front doors, apartment doors, interior doors, cabinets, and many other things more. And we are part of the ASSA ABLOY Group, the global leader in access solutions and door opening. Every day we are helping billions of people to experience a more open world. So in my role, I'm heading up the product units for residential access, residential alarms, and surveillance, means the smart locks, the alarm systems, and the cameras for in and outdoor.
Great, thank you, Marcus. Great to have you and Yale ASSA ABLOY represented on the panel today. And next we have Stefan Vanderbroek, who is, next we have Chris Viat, who's the CEO and founder of Miele. Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and Miele.
Everyone, good to be here. I'm Chris Viat, the founder and CEO of Miele. Miele is an on-demand tech support marketplace with businesses in several countries in Europe. We founded Miele in 2016 because we believed already then that in the future, when every home has more than 30 up to 50 connected devices in their home, that the expectations of the people will change. So expectations about how to get support, how to get access to someone who can help. And that's why we founded at the end Miele, which is a big network behind the platform, technician network, which is trained on just tech support stuff, mainly on site.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. Absolutely a big opportunity there, and something that's going to be really critical in the future is ensuring that great user experience. So thank you very much for that introduction. And next up, we have Stefan, who's the Vice President of Customer Success with Plume. Hi, Stefan. I think we're having trouble with your audio. If you have muted yourself, can you go ahead? There we go.
Is this better, Jennifer? Yeah.
Wonderful. I can hear you now.
Great. So thank you for having me. Very happy to be here. My name is Stefan. I'm Vice President for Customer Success at Plume. For those of you who may not know Plume, we provide a customer experience platform that CSPs can deploy for the benefits of their residential as well as small business customers. And basically, we provide a number of solutions for in-home connectivity. As we will talk about probably today, the complexity of in-home connectivity has grown exponentially over the last couple of years, and that's the cornerstone of our service. And next to that, we provide a number of value-add services that allow service providers like telcos and ISPs to better serve their customers and to provide a world-class customer experience that's very secure and provides added value. We do it now for over 250 service providers in the world. We touch over 35 million households, and on a daily basis, we ensure the proper connectivity of over 1.2 billion devices.
You have a really interesting insight into the home from your perspective and where you sit in the ecosystem. So thank you so much for joining us today. So to start off, this first question I'll go to Marcus and then Tally. Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic has really shifted the market for everybody and impacted maybe different geographies in different ways, and the way that different markets and governments kind of responded, and the response to the pandemic has been unique in different places. I'd love to understand, from your experience of the past 18 months, how you would characterize really the state of the smart home in Europe, right? What is this moment today? Can you describe that for us from the European perspective? Go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, I hope I'm not unmuted. You can hear me. So
sure can.
Let me start with some information or market introduction. So in Europe, the smart home market is constantly growing and evolving. Consumers enjoy the convenience and flexibility brought by smart home solutions, and as a result, our customer base has continuously is growing despite the pandemic. This couldn't stop it. So also the current health or COVID situation has been handled quite differently by each individual country, and we had faced by some common issues across all of our markets, and the ones which has the most impact were certainly the shortage of product supply and a huge spike in online sales. And this is direct result of the retailers closing down for months at a time. So one of our most important sales channels have been broken away, but therefore we had more online. The pandemic also had a significant impact on consumer trends and needs. And the consumer trends, when I start with that, as we interact with our partners and consumers across Europe, we have been noticing the following trends. So consumers value comfort and peace of mind more than they ever have done before. They like interconnected products that work together with a smart home ecosystem. And they seek products that can be self-installed with remote technical assistance to avoid unnecessary contact with product installers. People don't want to have strangers in their home for doing some work. And finally, there has been a clear increase in planning of smart home and building, which can work together to the benefit of everyone. The product demand, when I look at from this side, in terms of that, remote work, homeschooling have truly highlighted the convenience offered by smart cameras, allowing parents to keep an eye on their kids in the second room as they work, or check who is at the front door without having to move from the desk. Smart home products such as safes have become the perfect solution also for these people working from home to store valuable work documents or electronics the safe way at home, where you have little children and also still some visitors, and you don't want to share the company secrets. So this is a major opportunity for our smart storage lines, and we are planning to launch this in Europe in the near future. We do already have the normal digital safes which got an increase during the pandemic so far.
Wow, that's really interesting. A lot of interesting things that you packed into that response there, Marcus. I'd love to just follow up real quick on the retail versus online. Are you starting to see retail coming back at this point? Are you still, very, very strongly reliant on online channels for product, maybe compared to a couple of years back?
Retail is coming back, but also it has been different during the pandemic, depending on the regions. If you look in Sweden, for example, they had not really a lockdown, so their shops have been open and people could still go in there. When I then look at Germany, where I live, the retail stores, they have been first closed and then opened only to pick something up. People could not enter it and look around, and this is changing the buying behavior. So what the people have done instead is they looked online on the products, on the feature set and so on. And then these days it's also easy to order something, test it, and if you don't like it, you can send it back as well. So we have seen a shift to online, but retail is coming back as well now.
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch that dynamic, because I think there's been a sort of conversation in the smart home industry that a lot of the sale can be, you need to demo it to an extent. You need to see how these devices work. So whether that's in a friend's home or family member's home or at retail, that was a really powerful thing, and that sort of tool was lost. But sounds like we're maybe replicating some of that in the online shopping experience. Well, Tally, I'd love to get your perspective as well from the chipset manufacturer, perspective, right? We hear a lot about chipset shortages. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about, with the state of the smart home generally in Europe, but then also kind of you have this really unique chipset point of view that you can share with us?
Yeah, actually, Marcus mentioned it, but I will start with the positive, though, not with the negative. From the positive perspective, obviously, the pandemic proving to be the catalyst for the digital transformation. We hear it everywhere. The from-home lifestyles, working from home, studying from home, staying from home, accelerated the adoption of smart home devices, created more use cases for smart home. People are looking at the home to serve them, to be more comfort environment, and are willing to invest in that. And I think that we will touch it later on the privacy angle. I think that specifically in Europe, with the more awareness to privacy and so on, they are willing more to sacrifice in a way the privacy for appealing use case, but we will touch it later on. Furthermore, the stay from home, within the stay from home environment, energy consumption also jumped, and people became more aware to the spending and so on, and are looking for solutions to reduce and monitor energy and so on. We saw a lot of demand to such devices based on our technologies. From the product the DSP Group technology is integrated in, we saw a record demand for tablets, obviously, in 2020 and 2021. With the studying from home, people demand more screens and more tablets and so on. High demand for security cameras. Broadband gateways, obviously, that our technologies are integrated to as well. Also accelerated in demand to support better coverage, etc. Smart home and security devices. And you will be also surprised, DSP Group, as I mentioned earlier, is the largest supplier for cordless phone. We experienced between, I think, 7 to 10 years of decline in cordless phone demand. And during 2020 and 2021, suddenly there is an increase, and the telephony became a feature that people would like to adopt again. One more clear trend that we saw is the adoption of voice as a user interface. DSP Group technologies are enabling a lot of variety applications of voice as a user interface and so on. And if in the past it was a cool gadget and nice to have, now it become almost mandatory to avoid touching surfaces and so on. From the other end, as Jennifer, you rightfully said, we obviously see some negative implication. And the first ones that we have dealt with massively on a daily basis in the past year is obviously the semiconductor supply crisis. This crisis obviously impacted the availability of products, the availability of solutions, and the supply chain is extremely tight. Also, by the way, influenced the pricing for component, pricing for shipments, etc. We saw part of the customers actually delaying product launches, new product launches due to the shortages, changing the architecture in order to facilitate components that have larger supply rather than other one. In the smart home specifically, part of the hub include various connectivities, and obviously every such connectivity require different component, and as such there is some sort of a trend to reduce the number of connectivities and so on. And here ULE, the technology that we are promoting, obviously can win as part of that, because it's supporting also voice and data and not limited just for one use case. I think that one other example that I have in mind, one other primary industry that we're selling to is the telecommunication service provider. And I think that Marcus indicated earlier that obviously all the physical stores were closed. Apparently, smart home devices are mainly consumed through the physical stores. And as we saw, unfortunately, the consumer did not adapt very fast to go to online shopping for such devices through telecommunication service provider. And this is something that impacted negatively the demand. And one last interesting example, we talked, I think that one of the speakers talked earlier about the smart TV that obviously was in high demand in Europe and across the world, but in 2020, during the beginning of the pandemic and so on, most of the production facilities were closed, and it impacted the smart TVs from one end, but from the other end, the fact that all the sport events were canceled, it's something that also, it's the main trigger apparently for the replacement cycle of TV, so it's also impacted negatively.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really full picture view. Do you have any thoughts to share on the, the component shortages and what that kind of means into the future as we look into 2020? We're already here in November, believe it or not. We're almost at 2022. So what does, the outlook look like? Should manufacturers certainly be preparing, right, to have a pretty long-term issue here?
Yeah, so, I'm the more pessimistic on the team. If you're asking our leadership team, part of them saying that it will resolve somewhere in Q2, Q3, I don't see at the end of it. And I see that it will be in full force in 2021. We see it still happening. We're suffering from the supplies during the year as well. And hopefully it will resolve somewhere in 2022. I can tell you that it's the best period to be responsible for sales, the worst period to be responsible for operations.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing all of that perspective. I'd love to focus a little bit about something that's come up a couple times on the foundation of everything in the connected home really is the connectivity coming into the home and then the home network, right, working. And there's been so much more focus on maybe what we've taken for granted in the past as, needing some rock solid connectivity in the household to really build upon for the rest of the industry. So Stefan, I'd love to turn to you and get your thoughts on, the opportunities that you're seeing at the network level, right, in this particular moment in Europe specifically.
No, absolutely. I think you said it right. It's been a little bit of a paradox. On the one hand, people have taken Wi-Fi for granted up until recently. On the other hand, Wi-Fi is the way through which the world consumes the internet, right? And 9 out of 10 times when people complain about their internet, they're not complaining about their broadband provider, they're complaining about the Wi-Fi. Something in the Wi-Fi is not working. And you've seen with the pandemic, but actually the trend already started before that, is the explosion of connected devices in the home. That really has been growing with double-digit percentage numbers every year. Top 20% of households have more than 40, 50 devices in their house already. You see also the increased need for management of that and increased need for bandwidth of smart TVs, 4K streaming, working from home, gaming. And there's a whole technology behind that on the Wi-Fi where you can manage that and optimize that through band steering, managing interference, channel management, and all these kind of wonderful things. And really what service providers have been doing, and I think almost every service provider in the world has been working on that or is working on that, is providing solutions to their end consumer that take care of that. So that the end consumer doesn't need to worry about the technology, but that's been taken care of, and that they can focus on the quality of the experience that they're getting in their home, and that it's going to be seamless, it's going to be optimized automatically for them. And this is where Plume has come in, and we built our cloud consumer experience platform that basically uses a device agnostic, CPE agnostic software layer, service layer on the devices, and we leverage the power of the cloud to, in a very smart way, manage for each and every single device, and there's billions of them in our clouds, for each and every single household, to optimize the Wi-Fi, make sure that the consumer experience there is very strong. I think regardless of what solution a service provider uses, I think all service providers are looking at this as kind of the cornerstone of their service offering, and ideally on top of which you will build additional services that are in the direction of security, as we heard Stephen speak, in the direction of the smart home connectivity, in the direction of assisted living and health related applications, and probably a whole lot more in the future that we haven't even imagined today.
Now, can you share with us a little bit about how consumers typically do receive their router and their home today in Europe, and whether it varies in different European markets? So is it overwhelmingly, as in the United States, that's ISP provided? Are you seeing, any impact from the past 18 months and consumers actually proactively upgrading and getting their own solution at retail, right? If what they have in the home and being provided by the provider isn't sufficient for their needs?
Yeah, I think, you see this both in the US as in Europe and the rest of the world. The majority of the people have looked at upgrading their broadband, right? Everyone said, okay, I'm going to be home, I'm going to work from home, I'm going to spend a lot of time at home, I want to have the best broadband I can get. So they upgrade to the highest package. Very often this would trigger a new device, a new gateway as well. But it has also opened up the opportunity to kind of think about the home network. Very traditionally, it has been a DIY solution, people going out to Best Buy in the US or to MediaMarkt in Europe and buying a bunch of extenders and try to set up a better Wi-Fi network. And honestly, with very mixed results, often not very good results. And what we've seen recently is that service providers are stepping into that gap and saying, hey, not only can we give you broadband, we can help you have a much better Wi-Fi experience in the home by providing you with a solution of extenders that is already optimized for your broadband and can be optimized for your home very easily. There's even broadband providers that go as far as providing some form of home Wi-Fi guarantee, because they're so confident in the solution they're providing that it will absolutely work and add value to the way consumers are experiencing their Wi-Fi. And I think this is a great thing where service providers can add more value and take away, solve a problem for the end consumer without the end consumer having to become a sort of a home CTO that needs to go into a gateway menu, because let's be honest, none of us really want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually speaks perfectly, Chris, to, the services that Mila is providing and the technical, and the support space, right? When consumers try and put things together themselves, oftentimes there's issues that arise, that they need support. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe specifically focusing kind of on the network and, experience issues that you see from, the services that Mila provides and how you're helping consumers to maybe smooth those out in order for the rest of the smart home to build on top of that?
Yes, of course. So what I need to mention is we partner with a lot of brands, retailers. So we are not just a marketplace where people book. So we are really integrated into the customer journey of retailers and brands. And one of our focus group is our telecom operators. So we know that they have a need for fast and qualified support. And what interesting was last year during the pandemic, in the first wave, we had a lot of internet installation, Wi-Fi optimizations, because more and more people worked at home. They had homeschooling, so more people used the network at the same time. And so they realized there's some limits. So we had a lot of jobs first to really optimize this and to make it work. And then when we had the second wave, so after the first 3 months, then we realized, okay, the people, they have money to spend for other things. So we had a more installation case for smart home products based on that, because the people didn't spend the money for holidays. So they really optimized things in their home. And we had really the first 1-2 months a very hard time, to be honest, because we had some partners, they thought, okay, customers were not open to get a technician at home, and they thought they want to stop offering such a service. And then over weeks, they realized that the people were looking for such a service because they needed support. And at the end, it turned then in a very successful story. So we did more and more jobs over the time. And we just see that the people, they want to use the devices. They want to have a very strong connectivity. It's a new human right at the end, and they don't want to care about it. Even the technology can be as good as possible, but at the end, they just want to use it. And that's what we figured out. And we see there is a growth in booking more and more on-site service at the end. And I think this pandemic also accelerated that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've seen even in the US market where, of course, there was a drop of professionally installed systems, but and DIY kind of going through the roof. And then just in Q2 2021, we saw some professional install tick back up and regain some of the ground that it had lost. So I do think that there certainly is value for that. And consumers who don't either want to do it themselves or know that they can get their products done just right if they have a professional.
Yeah, absolutely. We have different groups. You have the one, they don't know how. Then we have the ones that they don't want to do it. And I think, or the ones they don't have time. And we see this is the entire group. And the people who don't want to do it or don't have time, this group is definitely increasing. And I think at the end, to install one device is super simple, for example, but to connect that to create a use case which makes sense, to automate things, this is exactly something which we see they are really tired or not really interested to do that. So they would love to have great solution at home, but at the end they don't want to care about it. And that's something which we realize, and also why we, by the way, stepped into do some home consultation at the end. So we do for certain brands also home consultations, so we explain what is the right solution, how they could use it, and then we sell it and install it at the end. So we see really that there are a lot of people that don't want to care about all this tech stuff. They just want to use it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I'd love to shift our focus a little bit to use cases, right? Different value propositions in the home. We've talked about a little bit from some of our former speakers, but really want to understand what you guys see as the biggest opportunities in the market. We mentioned earlier about how, again, in the US market, a little bit more safety, security first. In the UK market, more energy management has traditionally been a leading use case. We did put a polling question out to our audience asking, which use case has the greatest growth opportunity in Europe specifically, with five options. They're only allowed to select one. Indoor air quality, connected health solutions, smart Wi-Fi networking, energy management solutions, and residential security. And the results here, energy management, it's actually pretty spread, no far away leader. Nobody picked indoor air quality, but energy management solutions just barely takes the lead, followed by an even split between security and connected health. So Tally, I'd love to go back to you on your thoughts of some of the use cases that you see that are really maybe on the rise and gaining new attention?
Sure. Just referring to Chris' last sentence, I think that the consumer prefers the home to work for him rather than the consumer working for the home and maintaining and so on. So this is basically the expectation. And for your question, Jennifer, basically DSP Group and the ULE technology is being adopted in both US and Europe. ULE brings the benefits of interference-free spectrum band, long range, and more important, natural support in real-time two-way voice. And as such, in the past, I would say 2 to 3 years, it was adopted widely, mostly in the security service provider arena in the US, and became one of the technologies of choice in this market. From the other end, DECT and as such, the infrastructure for ULE is adopted in millions of home gateways, broadband home gateways across Europe, most of the countries in Europe actually. You know, if I'm looking on the telecommunication service providers from BT to Orange to DT to O2, AVM, that it's not exactly service provider and so on, including the ULE technology. Someone earlier in the audience asked about Germany. So in Germany, ULE is basically the dominant technology by far. And I think that we see very different, I would say, adoption for use cases between US and Europe. Basically, the combination of our smart voice technology and the ULE enable to deliver a real-time two-way voice, as I mentioned, and also audio analytics. So if I'm referring to the US are adopting the two-way voice to support mainly emergency use cases, enabling the security service provider to communicate with the home and so on. One thing that entered recently is more the ability to communicate within the home, with the people within the home, which is less of a security use case. And if I'm referring to the audio analytics, I'm referring more to security and safety use cases such as T3, T4, which are the sounds that generated by the smoke and CO detectors, glass break, etc. In Europe, from the other end, we saw demand for use cases that support energy consumption monitoring, such as integration of motion detection and cameras to see, basically to monitor room presence, to control lights and AC and so on in accordance to that. Voice integration into appliances, more for the comfort rather than the security. And one more driver that actually was missing from the polling question that you put there is the elderly care. And I think that the speaker from NICE Group mentioned the aging population in Europe. I think that in Europe, it's one of the primary drivers to adoption of smart home and elderly care type of solutions and system, especially during the pandemic, when the elderly, were at home with the lockdowns and so on, with inability to see their relatives and so on. This is something that driven the adoption of a lot of use cases, features, systems, and so on that support this specific use case.
Yeah, I think the aging population focus is a really interesting one because it's almost like not one specific use case per se. It's thoughtful design of solutions for particular demographics. So for instance, there's a lot of focus, of course, on fall detection, right, for a health use case. But our research shows that seniors are almost just as interested in smart lighting that automatically detects when they get out of bed to help lead the way to the bathroom, right? Which is when most falls occur at night, right? In that sort of use case. So it's using smart home tech in a way that's really thoughtful and relevant to a specific population and making that known, right?
Yeah, one of the things that our customers basically demonstrate is, I would say, the elderly prefer not to put on them devices, right, like pendant and wearable devices and so on. They prefer something that will be in the room, etc. But here again, there are the privacy concerns. So I think that it's not fully yet solved. There is no winning yet system that solve all the issues.
Right. Well, Marcus, we'd love to come to you as well for your thoughts on some leading use cases. Obviously, strong presence at the entryway, access control points, and some interesting use cases there around, let's say, package delivery as everyone's shopping online. But what are you seeing as maybe some of the greatest growth opportunities here?
Yeah, this is my favorite topic. I really want to speak about the drivers. This keeps me awake at night, how I can challenge my product team and thinking more on the benefits of the user. So I picked out 3 drivers here. So the residential security access control, the saving energy, so the security, the access control, and the saving energy. And this overall benefit of the everyday convenience this is some of the main industry drivers, what we see in Europe. So I'm starting with the residential security. It must be said that voice assistants have been a major smart home driver in Europe, so they opened the door for others who can come in. Nowadays, consumers enjoy being able to control their smart home products through the use of the voice only, which is why our partnerships with the likes of Google Assistant or Amazon Alexa, they have been crucial in meeting this customer need. In fact, a recent study by Adobe showed that 31% of consumers they surveyed use their voice to make smart home commands like locking and unlocking a door, turning off lights, or other things. Partnerships with other major brands such as Philips Hue have allowed us to add an additional level of security to our existing product, such as our newest lock, the Linus Smart Lock, for example, or the Sync Smart Home Alarm system. The Sync Smart Home Alarm integration combines already light and sound to create the ultimate double deterrent of to discourage burglars when they are in the house. So if they trigger an alarm by moving inside and you have an alarm system, the alarm will be activated and the Philips Hue lights will flash red, notifying the neighbors of a break-in in parallel to the siren, which you have hopefully there as well. Another use case is as well, so you want to see this flashing red light when you come home and you get a notification on your mobile phone and you see the light flashing red. You probably don't want to go in the house if you are not sure if the burglar is still in or not. You better wait for the police. So this is just one example of the use cases which we can add with our smart devices for the residential security. Another one is access control and the convenience of being able to gain keyless access into the home or grant controlled access from anywhere in the world is something that has been appreciated by our consumers across the EMEA region. Our newest access solution, well, I mentioned it again, so it's the other locks, but also Linus, our motorized smart lock, allows them to just do that through the Yale Access mobile app. You can send virtual keys to family, friends, or trusted workers for a couple of minutes, hours, or days, or unlimited. The user can then, so me as the homeowner, as the main user, the administrator, I can check who entered the house and when, as we have an activity history feed, so everything is stored and the information is available. With the auto lock feature, I don't have to worry about forgetting to lock the door after leaving in the house. When so in Germany, for example, where we have latch and bolts, it's normal during the day you have just the latch, and when you sleep at night or when everybody's going away, you lock all the bolts. This can be automated with our system. When I then come home, so I approach the door, and a real life experience for myself is that a handful of shopping bags. When I went out with the wife, and I know my role, I'm carrying the bags. Mobile phone is in my trouser in the pocket somewhere. I don't have to take it out. The door will unlock automatically as we have geofencing. And this is exactly this kind of convenience which is needed by the consumers today, and they are still secure. And as the last point I was pointing out is energy saving. This has been an aspect we are studying carefully over the last months, quarters, years. In support of this, we have recently partnered up with Home Connect Plus, which is an app who enables control of smart home products from different brands centrally. So the consumers can now connect their Linus Smart Lock to different smart home devices or whole systems to get even more value out of their smart home technology to ensure the maximum energy efficiency. The example can be, I lock the door when I leave from home, press the one lock or do it in the app, locking the door. The Home Connect Plus starts then the away automation. Reduce the heating to save the energy. In parallel, you can start a cleaning robot or whatever you want to do. We arm the security system, and even we switch off all lights simultaneously as you leave. So all this is possible with our system, and with this enabling or knowing if somebody is at home or not, we can save energy this way as well.
So thanks for sharing all those thoughts, Marcus. You know, from a device manufacturer's perspective, you know, you were talking a lot about the ability for your products also to work with some partner products throughout the home, right? To create this value for the consumer. You know, there are kind of two ways that products wind up working together and really represent two ways that consumers get into the smart home, either by buying solutions one at a time and hoping that they work together and trying to figure out how to make that work, or buying a curated system that's sort of designed to work together. You know, from a product manufacturer's perspective, it would be great to understand which of these two houses may be more common today, and you know, what sort of evolution you see as in the market, you know, particularly as Matter and other interoperability initiatives try and solve some of that problem of piecing things together.
Yeah, you are hitting there some keywords which I want to explain a little bit more. So with the systems versus standalone solutions. So one of the biggest smart home trends currently is interoperability. So the consumers, they look for solutions that will offer them seamless and more enhanced experience. They require products that work together regardless of the brand. I think they don't want to have products only from one brand. They want that the best devices from whatever they should do can connect together. At Yale, we place innovation and consumer needs at the core of the business, and we are working hard to create the new product integrations across our smart product portfolio and externally. So we do both. We have complete systems, but they are not closed. They are open for integrations with trusted partners. An example is our Sync Smart Home Alarm integrates already today with our own smart camera range, but also leading voice assistants, which I mentioned before, and Philips Hue for smart lighting. Through our extensive range of partnerships, we are also enabling access through various systems, giving our consumers the flexibility as whether they would like to use an app of the choice, a smartwatch, or their favorite voice assistants to gain brand-controlled access into their home. I think if I have not counted wrong before, I can currently, with the apps on my mobile phone, I have 9 several options how I can go into my home. Might be worrying for some people, but I'm, as a customer, and I'm not a normal user, I have to say, but I can decide what I want to connect with. And it's the customer's choice to make this connection or not. So that this is not unsecure or anything like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So having that. Yeah, go ahead, Marcus. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. So no, that's great. And I'm putting it into sort of the customer choice. You know, Chris, from your perspective too, I would love to understand how you think about, you know, interoperability between devices possibly being on the horizon with Matter, or, you know, that's essentially the key number one technical issue that people have or tell us that they have in the home today is getting things just to work together. And part of the services that you provide, you were also talking about really doing consultative work on top of that. So maybe if that interoperability layer is solved, right, you know, you can provide even more value in talking about what the great design is for a certain system in a home, et cetera. So would love to get your thought on curated systems versus standalone purchases and the evolution of interoperability in the smart home.
So to be honest, we are definitely looking forward for Matter because this is a mess for consumers. And I think there is a reason why we didn't reach with smart home the mass at the moment. That's exactly because it's it's a big problem for consumers. So if you start with, I say, with a Ring doorbell or something else, and then you want to connect it maybe with a Google device, this is for a consumer a problem. And of course, mostly consumers, they start with the first device by themselves because they install first. Mostly it's a light bulb. That's something which we figured out, or a light switch. And then they want to add more and more devices and want to automate some scenes in their homes. And with this limitation, that's a big problem. Of course, we have solutions. We can help them to connect their devices. But at the end, this is not what the customer is looking for. So they want to have a solution which they can extend all the time at the end. And when you ask me about, Matt, what does it mean for the future? I believe we will still have this enough work for the installation, because today we are not mainly booked for easy cases. So to install a smart speak, for example, that's something which the majority is doing by themselves. We are booked to connect things, or where you need to have also, where you need to wire things, or where you create a certain complexity, and when we can help it and really to create scenes which make sense at the end. And one of them is, of course, as well also the basic. This is the connectivity, which is definitely always important. But that means for the future, I see just win-win situations for consumers, that they can really easily extend their solutions at home. Second, this is also much easier for us to convince them maybe to extend their existing network to other solutions. And so I see it just positive.
Awesome. Thank you for that perspective. So we do have some questions in from the audience. So I want to make sure that I get a chance to take in some questions. This is going to go to Tally and then Stefan, I think. Really important question around AI and data security to an extent. But how do folks in Europe feel about computer vision and facial recognition? Is it more or less viable as a part of a smart home solution component versus the United States? And I sort of relatedly, I'm just interested in the fact that whether it's computer vision, facial recognition, artificial intelligence, data analytics types applications are really adding a next level of value to the home. But we know that European consumers in particular, particularly privacy and security sensitive. So interested in, that push and pull there. But I think the facial recognition specifically is a great thing to call out. So Tally, I'm going to go first to you and then to Stefan.
Sure. So I will address these two questions together about like the edge AI and the facial recognition. I think that the consumers in Europe, and again, DSP Group is more on the audio and the voice side of the business, less on the face recognition. But if I need to bet and understand the customer and the consumer trends, I believe that the adoption of face recognition will be first in US rather than in Europe, because the consumer in Europe, the average consumer in Europe, just started to adopt and willing to sacrifice the privacy for the voice use cases. And now we are taking additional extreme, which is the facial recognition, which I believe will be more terrifying rather than, the voice itself. So I tend to think that the adoption will be wider first in US rather than Europe, but I would be happy to be corrected and think about my next step, maybe in a facial recognition company. In terms of the privacy and what you address, so obviously privacy is a top concern, especially in Europe. We all aware to the GDPR, to the big consumer awareness and so on. However, I believe, and as I said earlier, that it's all a matter of the value that it brings. And I often give you the example of the willing to say privacy and actually give the information of where we are in every given moment in order to know where and how to drive. And it's actually demonstrate exactly that. If the use case will be appealing enough and interesting enough, people will be willing to sacrifice in a way their privacy. However, having said that, more and more use cases can be supported now on the edge devices and do not need the cloud connection. with the increased processing power and capabilities and so on, even if we're taking in the facial recognition, so security cameras detection, if in the past the processes were all in the cloud and it was recording of hours of images and then processing it in the cloud, now it's basically all can be done locally on the edge, on the camera itself, without storing actually pictures and data in the cloud. The same for sound event detection, which is something that's closer to me. In the past, all the sounds were recorded and were sent to analysis in the cloud and so on. If we're looking on sounds that sound the same, T3 and T4, it's easier because it's the pattern and the sound that being detected by the smoke detector, the CO detectors that are fixed. Even glass break with machine learning, AI, and so on. You can analyze glass break on the edge, even in battery operated devices these days. So you don't need necessarily the cloud connection, and also a partition between cloud and edge devices also possible.
Yeah, interesting. And Stefan, same thought to you. Where do you see the sort of trade-offs between advances in artificial intelligence and facial recognition, right? And privacy.
Sure. I'll talk about AI first and then a little bit about facial recognition specifically. But I think today we talk about smart devices and artificial intelligence, and I think in meaning that they are connected and they're using some sort of an algorithm or something, doing either something smart reactively or proactively, right? And I think very soon we'll no longer do that. We'll just talk again about products and services, because every single product will be connected and every single product and service will use some form of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence has a huge opportunity and capability to make our lives more convenient, easier, safer, and also in some cases healthier, right? But there's an equally large responsibility to ensure that the technology is used responsibly. And this goes a lot further than being GDPR compliant or something like that. That's really table stakes that everybody needs to adhere to. I believe it truly comes down to trust. You have to trust your provider. And I think we're going to a new era where people will judge product providers and service providers not only by the capabilities of their service and products, and in many categories there will be very similar capabilities, but they will judge these providers by the level of trust they have in them, in terms of how will this provider take care of my data, how will they take care of my private information, will they not use this private information for purposes that I don't agree with, right? I think every consumer eventually will have to come to terms that service providers, product providers will use part of the data that they get out of the device or out of the service to make that service better and to deliver a better service to that consumer. I think that's okay. But you have to be very open and clear about what other purposes you may want to use the data for. And I think it goes a lot further than hiding that in some kind of a cookie declaration. You have to have a very open and transparent conversation with your customer. And as a service and product provider, you have to have a very open and well-defined culture inside your company about building trust with your consumers and making sure you have the right process and policies in place to safeguard the data and to safeguard the use of artificial intelligence. And for me, facial recognition is just an example of this, right? There's a lot of biometric data out there. Facial recognition is very much in the news because it's something people can relate to. It's rather scary if you think about it in the context of Big Brother and hackers getting access to it, right? But of course, it has very practical uses as well. I've been using in my home an in-house camera that monitors who comes in and out of the house, and I've been using it for more than 4 years now. It's actually made by a French company. It's not made by evil tech in the US, as some people call it. And I trust that company because they explain very well how they process my data, how long it's stored, that it's not used for any other purposes. So I'm a happy user of the service. It tells me where my kids come home, and that gives me extra sense of security, right? So it's always going to be, I think, a trade-off between the service that you're going to get, the security and the safety that you're going to get out of the service, versus the trust that you have with the party that processes it. And I think this is going to be a big topic in the years to come.
Absolutely. Well, we only have a few minutes left, so I'd love to leave it with Chris for our last word here today. Chris, if you could give us some thoughts on what you think are really the next biggest opportunity in the smart home when you think about the European market and the European consumer. And Chris, we actually can't hear you. I think you may have muted yourself.
Okay,
there we
sorry.
go. Thank you. Perfect.
Now it will work. Now, what I definitely see is in the future that, as we mentioned at the beginning, we will have more connected devices in the homes. If you have up to 50 devices in your home connected, if all your kitchen is connected, then this will change dramatically the expectations. And this means as well that support is definitely needed. Now, we believe in the future you will have a subscription-based service where we will take care of all your stuff at home. So that means you don't need to care about installation. You don't need to care about troubleshooting if something is not working. We will monitor that proactively, and we will help you in the situation where you need it. So that's also why Mila, by the way, exists. So we believe that as more devices we have connected to the internet, that also the people expect totally different support. As we also know, by the way, from other situations. So if you have a water pipe leak, for example, then you need to have a plumber. So you don't want to take care about by themselves. So you don't want to search for someone. You want to have someone who's taking care of that immediately. And the speed will be very important. And that's also why we believe in the future this will totally change. So there will be people who help other people proactively and based on the amount of connected devices.
Wonderful. With that, I think we have to close the discussion. I really appreciate all of the great insights from our speakers today. We are continuing the conversation between now and our next session in a networking breakout group. We had a couple audience questions we weren't able to get to, including one that's really interesting around the growth and expected kind of boom in EVs in Europe and how you integrate EV charging back into the home and what that's going to look like. So I'd love to get some thoughts in the networking chat room for anybody who's able to join us. So thank you all very much for your time today. Good evening. I know it's late. So thanks so much to our panel.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you very much,
Jennifer.
I think that we were the only panels that did not say the word matter enough.
Enough, yeah, just a little bit. So, but thanks, Charlie. So again, up next, our team should be putting in a link to the Zoom networking chat room into the chat tab right now. And then we come back at 2 o'clock, so about 45 minutes, 2 o'clock p.m. Central Time, to really dive into the insurance sector and look at the unique partnerships and value propositions when you think about what smart home and insurance initiatives can look like. And that session's sponsored by Notion, so thank you very much, Notion. Certainly, if you have any research needs, we'd love to help you with that. We certainly specialize in the smart home market and cover all emerging consumer technologies that folks are using today. So reach out to our Vice President of Business Development, Jason Paris. And also, if you would like to sponsor Connections or any of our premium executive events, or interested in thought leadership pieces or sponsored white papers and webinars, reach out to Ashton and our team. Follow us on social media. So thank you all very much. We'll see you in the networking room, and then back here in about 45 minutes for our next session.
beach cooler open,